By the late 1980s, the coastal air of South Devon was falling silent. A sound that had defined the landscape for generations was simply vanishing. That sound belonged to the Cirl Bunting, a distinctive, high-pitched metallic rattle, often described as a bunch of jangling keys. As traditional farming vanished, the bird followed, nearly silenced by the shift toward modern agricultural intensity. This chart shows the severity of the collapse. In 1989, only 118 pairs remained, isolated along the Devon coast. Then, the trajectory changed. The population surged from that low, climbing past 1,200 pairs today, with growth continuing into 2026. This expansion didn't just meet conservation targets, it overshot them. It represents one of the most successful single-species recoveries ever recorded in the UK. This recovery is particularly striking because of a fundamental biological constraint. Unlike many birds, the Cirl Bunting is a stubborn resident. It simply refuses to travel long distances for its survival. Biologists mapped this as the 2-kilometer rule, the maximum distance a bunting travels for food, water, or a mate. Every ecological requirement must exist simultaneously within this strict boundary. If one element is missing, the birds cannot survive. Success for the species depends on a hyper-local spatial strategy. To save the bird, conservationists had to figure out how to pack a complex multi-stage habitat into these small, overlapping circles. The first requirement is winter survival. To endure the frost, the birds need a constant supply of high-energy seeds. This foraging ground is created by planting spring barley and leaving the overwintered stubbles in the ground. These fields provide the tiny, calorie-dense seeds necessary to see the birds through the coldest months. By summer, the requirements shift completely. To grow, bunting chicks need a protein-heavy superfood diet, which they find in grasshoppers and crickets. These insects thrive in varied, rough grass. Extensive cattle grazing is the key here. The cows maintain the specific vegetation heights required to cultivate a rich insect population. Finally, the birds require security. Without impenetrable cover, the nests are easy targets for predators. Traditional hedge laying and no-fence grazing on the slopes allow thick, scruffy gorse and bramble to take hold. These dense thickets provide the thorns and depth needed for a safe nesting site. Aligning these three distinct landscapes is the primary challenge. Modern commercial farming rarely allows a seed-rich stubble field, a cattle pasture, and wild thorny scrub to occupy the same 2-kilometer radius. So where, in a landscape of intensive farming, could these three conflicting environments find a way to coexist? The answer came from the 1,200-acre Sidmouth Donkey Sanctuary. The sanctuary was built as a haven for rescue equines. However, the way it managed land for donkeys created a mosaic of habitats that perfectly synchronized with the needs of the Cirl Bunting. By managing the pastures for its residents, the sanctuary inadvertently provided the winter seeds, summer insects, and thick nesting cover the birds needed in one place. This serendipitous overlap turned the sanctuary into the engine room of the recovery. It shows how conservation often succeeds best when the needs of different species are allowed to intersect. With the Sidmouth model in place, the birds began to reclaim the wider Devon landscape. Historically, the Cirl Bunting was a localized specialist. It stayed within its coastal pockets, rarely venturing far from its birthplace. But as the population grew, the birds crossed a major geographic barrier, leaping the estuary to establish a brand new stronghold in the Sid Valley. As a resident species, they were able to capitalize on a mild spring in 2025. Without the stress of global migration, the birds funneled their energy into high productivity, successfully raising second and even third broods. By aligning these hyper-local requirements, conservationists empowered a historically immobilized species to aggressively expand into new territory. The results of this expansion are now a permanent fixture of life in the Sid Valley. As the 2028 national census approaches, winter flocks of buntings are becoming a common sight for residents and visitors alike. The focus is now shifting toward community science. Using tools like iNaturalist, local residents are tracking the bird's progress and mapping its growth. This data allows for a garden-by-garden map of the bird's expansion, moving the future of the species' survival into the hands of the people who live alongside it. Tolling a species back from the very brink of extinction is possible through these targeted, hyper-local ecological levers. By synchronizing the needs of a landscape, we can bring its lost sounds back to life.